start this podcast with a compliment from a very unlikely source. And it's also not a compliment, but we're just going to pretend like it is.
So you're starting this under false pretenses.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
So you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Not really.
So Mr. Positivity Wolfie T said.
Okay, this is gonna go south.
Yeah. Said your episode on Downhill was better than the movie itself.
That's like, that's not a compliment.
No.
The movie was terrible.
Yeah, we didn't say it was terrible.
It was terrible.
But I replied and said it wasn't a ringing endorsement. And he said, I should know. I saw it alone in an empty theater on opening weekend, and I regretted it even more when I realized it snowed while I was in the theater. So, just saying, so if you guys haven't listened to our episode on Downhill, but you happen to have seen the movie and you didn't like the movie, you might still like our podcast episode.
I doubt it. It was...
Wow. We're going to talk bad about our own episodes now.
I mean, yeah, self-deprecating humor is the best kind of humor.
I mean, it was a dark comedy, so it fits.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was our last episode, and I thought it was interesting to get a comment from him of all people. So, here we are.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Shay.
And this is Cinematically Correct, and this was my choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose a romantic spy history movie because it was supposed to be done for Valentine's Day. And so I did Allied. Mm-hmm. And yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so you have a beer, which I apparently get to watch you shower in because you just dropped it. So this is going to be a great time. Oh, there's even a dent on it.
Yeah, there's a dent and there's a couple.
I really hope that it sounds like just...
So this is Urban Artifact Spyglass. And it's a spy movie, so that's what we're going to go with.
And it was a lemon lime tart is what it says.
Yes, lemon lime tart ale.
Don't point it at me.
That was
a letdown.
Decidedly a letdown. Well, that's actually really quite good.
I was hoping you were going to wear it, not like it.
I'm sorry, darling. I'm sorry to be a letdown.
Wear what you get.
That's very tart.
Yeah, well, it's a lemon lime tart, so I mean.
Yeah, definitely lemon lime.
So, anyways, would you like to give us a brief synopsis of the movie you chose?
Brief synopsis.
Brief synopsis.
So this movie is about two spies that meet in Morocco, and they kill a bunch of Nazis, and they fall in love, and they go to England, and one of them is a secret double agent for the Nazis.
It's very brief.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great. Okay, so are you ready for the IMDb?
Sure.
Okay, so how many characters do we think we need to cover here?
I mean, the two main characters.
Okay, so
basically it.
Brad Pitt plays Max Vuitton.
Yep.
So he's Canadian, right?
He's Canadian.
Okay, and he plays a French Parisian? Like he's pretending to be a French Parisian as a spy?
He's a Canadian that has been practicing his French to be a spy in France as a Parisian, or in Morocco.
I was just going to say, they're not in France, they're in Casablanca.
Yeah, they are in Casablanca, Morocco, which was owned by France, that is now controlled by the Nazis.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's Brad Pitt, right? So you can't complain. I mean, the biggest complaint I did see online was that they said his face looked weird the whole time. So I don't know. I mean, I didn't know.
Who the hell is going to say that? Who has the unmitigated gall to say Brad Pitt's face looks weird?
Well, I think they thought it was CGI to make him look younger. I didn't notice that. I just thought like he just looked like he's been getting a little bit older, which is expected. I didn't notice it, but people did.
I mean, he's Brad Pitt, so if you don't know what he's been in literally everything.
I mean, do I need to name it all? I mean, there's a billion things. Obviously, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is coming up in my mind, but I think that's because of the whole controversy around this movie. But it's fine.
It's also a spy movie.
Yeah.
Fight Club. Benjamin Button.
Yeah. He's been in everything.
So many things.
He's Brad Pitt. Inglourious Bastards. He's been in everything. He's wonderful, and I have no complaints about him, and I never do. So I don't.
No, he fantastically acted. He's actually my Lord of the Rings connection.
Of course he is.
So he was in the movie Troy with Orlando Bloom and Sean Bean, both of whom were in Lord of the Rings. I know.
Wow, fancy.
Direct connection to two.
I'm so proud of you. Yeah. So, I mean, we should mention the controversy real quick on this movie. Just while we're here.
that he was allegedly having an affair on the set of this movie?
Yes,
with Marion Cotillard.
Yes. Now it is said that this rumor is not true. However, Angelina Jolie did file for divorce very soon after filming of this movie. So I guess we can speculate and believe what we want to believe on whether or not he did meet Angelina Jolie on Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and I believe he was like right after Jennifer Aniston or still with Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, he was definitely still with Jennifer Aniston, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
and
so
I mean, she's not wrong, because if he's going to cheat with you, then
he'll cheat on you.
He'll cheat on you.
Yeah, so I mean, we love Brad Pitt for his acting, but I don't think I'd want to be married to him. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe
just
for the money.
The opportunities for him are there more than any other person, basically.
So I mean, if you're an insecure girl at all, you ain't making it.
ain't gonna work.
Yeah. Anyways, just wanted to mention it. But as we're speaking of Marion Cotillard, is that how you say her name?
Cotillard? It's French. I have no idea.
I don't know either. But she plays Marion Bossier. I'm French and I can't speak French. I know her from The Dark Knight and Inception. That's really all I know her from. Her face looks very familiar, but I scrolled through her IMDb, and those are the only movies I know.
Those are the big ticket movies that have come out recently. Is Batman and Inception.
So she plays a spy who marries Brad Pitt as a spy, like fake marries, and then real marries him later on, essentially.
Yes. And
come to find out, spoilers, that she is a double agent. And it's kind of the whole struggle of him trying to decide what he's going to do with the fact that his wife is a double agent, and also trying to make sure that it's true before he does anything rash, basically.
I'm reminded of the Stephen Lynch song, I Think You're a Nazi Baby.
You were holding on to that, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. As for how I felt about her character, I actually really liked her character. I love the whole like sly, manipulative women that are really good at reading people's body language and reading lies and all that kind of stuff.
Apparently not that good because she gets caught.
But she was very good about picking up subtle details. Like, for example, when he was going to give blood, if he had not done that fake poke thing, she would have picked up on it because she checked right away. Yeah. She also noticed a change in his attitude when they were making love the night before. So she's very good at picking up that kind of stuff, and I find that fascinating. Like, human behavior is just fascinating to me. So I loved her. I thought she was great. Obviously not my favorite because there's somebody else in this movie that I have a weird obsession with for no good reason. But yeah, so. All right.
Do we have to cover anyone else? You have to do your Gilmore Girls reference.
I do. And
regrettably.
Also my favorite actress in this film, Lizzie Kaplan. Which I have no excuse for. I fell in love with her for a small TV show called The Class, which I doubt anyone has seen because there's only 19 episodes, but I have rewatched them at least 80 times. Don't know what's wrong with me, but I fell in love with her then. She plays Brad Pitt's sister in this movie. She is openly gay, and she's part of the Army, I believe. She's in
Army or Air Force, some kind of military attaché.
Yes, and we will talk a lot about her character, but there isn't much to it. That she's just a sister. She's not really a fleshed out character. She's very ancillary.
She's in maybe 5 minutes of this movie.
Yes, but she is my reference. She was in, hold please, a show called Party Down with Dave Allen, who is the town troubadour in Gilmore Girls. So,
you're stretching on that one. I got a 2 for it. You have town troubadour.
I'm proud of myself when I get like the small characters and I'm not just reaching for like the big name actors. So thank you. Anyways, so we ready to get into the meat of it?
Let's get into it.
Okay. So first of all, we wanted to talk about the genre of the movie.
Yes. So is this really a romantic movie? Is it a spy movie? Is it a war movie? Where would you say that it falls? Or does it just sit directly in the middle of all of them?
Well, so you had me watch this movie and I hadn't seen the trailer. So sometimes I watch trailers before. Generally I don't. In this case I didn't. And you told me it was a romantic spy movie. So in my head, I had like Mr. and Mrs. Smith in my head. Like kind of more love story centered. This had a love story, but the whole time you weren't really rooting for them to make it. Like there wasn't a lot of like me really invested in their love story. I was more invested in like did she or didn't she, and like in the plot where I wasn't invested in the love story. So I would call it more of a spy movie than a love story.
A spy movie set during a wartime with a love story.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
then you have the war movie genre. Where does that fall? Like, how much war is needed in a war movie?
I mean, it's not a traditional war movie. It's more of the behind the scenes part of the war.
Right, the relationships.
Well, it's the relationships, it's the spying, which is underrepresented a lot of the time because it's always flashy to have the huge gunfights and the tanks and the planes and all of that on screen for movies.
I mean, but spies won some of these wars.
A lot of
Let's be real.
Yeah.
So I mean, I lean towards spy movie. What do you lean towards?
I think that's fair. I think it is a spy movie with romantic elements, but it's mostly a spy movie.
Yeah. So if your husband sits you down and says, "No, honey, it's a romantic movie," it's not. Like, the ending is really not romantic. I mean, I guess you can call that romantic, but anyways, we'll get to that. And if you don't want spoilers, I promise you we're spoiling this.
Yeah.
So, you were talking about the opening. You said that you really enjoyed
So
that.
it was a very nice, classic, clean opening. So the text was just on the screen, black and white, like the old time movies.
Now, did the font bother you? Because that was a very big discussion topic on the interwebs.
It was fine. There was nothing really special about it.
It was apparently like one of the basic fonts that you get in Word or something. So
Yeah.
people were really upset about that.
No, it was just a plain, like, it was almost like it was a typed out document, but it was just regular font. And then it was the nice cinematic of the parachuting in the quiet to start off a movie rather than a fight scene right at the start of a war movie.
Right.
So it was a nice change. It was not exactly what I was expecting.
I didn't really the opening didn't stick out to me, probably because it was very simple. So it didn't
So I kind of like the simple, understated start to this, especially when it's a spy movie.
Well, since you're talking about that, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but you're talking about the aesthetic of the start. So what did you think of the aesthetic of the film? Because if I remember correctly, during the film, you didn't enjoy it.
Which parts of the aesthetic?
I mean, like the outfits and the background.
No, I just know full well that I can't wear a fedora.
But do you enjoy seeing like that time period piece? Or
I do. I'm a big history guy, as you know, and seeing the behind the scenes of that time period is just a change and something that I'm not accustomed to, where it's very clearly set during the 40s.
Very clearly, yeah.
And they have their very simple aesthetic, and it's a period piece, and it takes me back, and it's a nice little snapshot.
Did you find that the actors fit into that aesthetic well, or do you think it looked like modern day actors in?
I mean, that's the thing. So there is a difference between the actors from back then and the people from back then.
Well,
right.
Actors. You think of what's his name with the blue eyes there, Paul Newman.
Paul Newman.
Like, you think of that type of person when you're thinking of like the older films, but
that's the 60s. That's not even the 40s.
I don't even know that I've seen 40s films. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head. It's a different aesthetic.
It's a different aesthetic, and while you're dressing them up like that, it's still very clearly not.
No, I felt like Brad Pitt did fit it well, but I feel like he's kind of a chameleon. He fits literally anything. So, but anyway, I just wanted to ask you that. Okay, so this movie kind of lends to a lot of questions of like how this works and whatever. So we're not going to really go in super order here because there's just questions and they just pop out. So, okay, so one of the main thing of this movie is that Brad Pitt finds out that his wife is a double agent, or at least speculated to be one. And he has to kind of participate in discovering whether or not she is
sussing her out, to use Among
Us terms?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So one of the things they ask him to do is what's called the blue dye test. So basically they give him some instructions over the phone, and he's supposed to write down false information, leave it for her, and see if she transmits that information.
Right, because he's the only one that is getting that information. So if it comes from there, then it is only him or her.
Right. So the question really is, first of all, did he need to know that the blue dye test was happening? Like, could they have just given him false information or useless information to see if he would tell it to her, considering that they said that one of the reasons they're suspecting her is because information that she has been transmitting is stuff that's only crossed his desk. So then that would lead to believe that he's either telling her or leaving it somewhere where she is already finding it.
I mean, yeah. I think there's two schools of thought on that. So if you tell him, then he's not going to pass that information off if he is the spy. Because he's going to be smart enough to not do that.
Right.
But at the same time, if you don't tell him, he's better able to not have anything to give away to his wife. Right. To let her know that this is happening so that you actually get a positive or negative result to your experiment.
Right.
So you're going in blind rather than altering the parameters and changing the outcome.
Right. I mean, yeah, I feel in my perspective he probably shouldn't have known, because I feel that would have been a better test on him to see, like, now that you know, are you still giving this information to your wife? Like, before he was clearly probably having open conversations with her, but did he stop doing that when he found out that this is a possible thing? But I'm sure that part of the reason they informed him is because they were afraid he would stop.
Right.
So
I mean, it's one of those things where if they don't tell him, then they're going to have to do a test on him at some point.
Right.
Without his wife. So they're going to have to isolate him from his wife and come up with a way to get him away from his wife so that if the information still gets passed on, they know it's him, not her.
Right. Yeah. So it's a difficult situation. On the same token, did he need to tell his sister?
Oh, no, he's a horrible spy. He told so many people. He told his sister. He told a random guy at the hospital. He told a pilot that got shot, and then he told the entire French resistance.
Yeah, he definitely needed to keep that to himself, but I can understand on the emotional front of just wanting anybody to tell him that this wasn't true.
Well, he has to know. Like, he's going to say, well, in his mind, there has to be a way that it got leaked. Because it can't just be me giving the information. Somebody else called me with the information, so somebody else has it. It doesn't prove anything because it could still be someone else.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like until you're banged in the head with that, you're gonna be just frantically looking for any other reason. You're
going to look for it out because it's your wife and you can't come to terms with the fact that she's doing that.
Right. I mean, and that's totally natural. Okay, so we find out that she is, in fact, a double agent. She is a German spy. But the question that comes out of that is, how long has she been a German spy? And what was the, I guess, like, the chain of events for this? I mean, the question is, like, did she stop being a spy at some point? Was she only a spy for a certain amount of time? Like, what's going on?
So I honestly don't know. I would lean towards that she was always a German operative, given that in their first mission together, that she shoots literally one person and then an entire...
Well, two people, because she shoots the person that the Germans also wanted dead, and then she shot her friend when he tried to kill her.
Right. And then literally shot all of the bullets into the wall.
Yes, which really seems like a waste of bullets.
Yeah, especially when there are perfectly good Nazis to use them on.
Right.
Like, the only good Nazi is a dead Nazi, really. So, yeah, I think she was probably a plant the entire time.
Okay. So do you think she took time off? Do you think that she stayed a Nazi even when she got married and had a kid? Or do you think she, like, decided to leave and then they really did approach her and threaten her baby, like she claims?
I think she was a spy the entire time. And she let the water get a little bit murky because she fell in love with him.
So you think she really did fall in love with him?
I do think that she fell in love with him when she wasn't supposed to.
At what point do you think she fell in love with him? Do you think she was in love with him when they first made love in that dust storm? Or do you think that was part of the game? Like, where do you think...
I'm thinking that was probably part of the game, at least at first.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that you can fall in love with someone, like, in a day. Like, it takes a little bit more time.
I thought you fell in love with me the day you met me.
We are the exception.
Oh, yeah. Cute. Yeah. Good answer. But, yeah, so I mean, I struggle with that because she is very manipulative, right? And one of the things she says is that the way that you fuck up is not by fucking, but by letting emotions get involved. So I feel like that means something in this movie, and that kind of stayed with me the entire time. And it makes me think, like, did she mess up being a German spy by falling in love? And at what point did she fall in love that it started screwing things up for her?
She very well may have had second thoughts, given that she was in England and removed. And it's very easy for you to go, okay, I'm a German spy, but how are they going to get here? Like, I'm on an island, I'm away, I could just fade into the background and never be seen again.
Right.
Like, so I think there is a component of that. I think she probably was overly comfortable with that, and then she was approached again.
Yeah, that's probably how it went down. But since we're talking about her being a spy, do we call her a good spy, given that she didn't know piano when she knew the story of this person whose identity she has assumed being like famous for this one song?
Well, she's supposed to be meticulous about the details. So she's talking about the husband would give me the cigarette first. I have to come up and see you on the roof in Morocco because that's what a wife would do. She's a stickler for the details.
Right.
This whole movie, and then a glaring hole in her story is that she can't play. She can't play piano. She can't play one song on the piano.
Right. One specific song that she knows the story and has heard,
right.
quote unquote, a million
it's
times.
It's apparently a famous story from
right.
her or about her, the person that she's supposed to be.
Right. So I go back and forth on that because people are comparing it to the fact that he knew the phosphate formula, which, I mean, memorizing a formula takes, 5 seconds? I mean, it's not a big deal.
I mean, a day or two to be, just have it burned in forever.
Yeah, you don't need to understand it. You just need to memorize it. So,
yeah.
But as for learning the piano, I mean, that's a skill that takes time to learn. Now, you can learn probably one song. I'm sure that you don't need to learn how to sight read and all that kind of stuff. You can start learning it by muscle memory or by sound or all of those kind of things. You don't need to learn all of the skills that come with learning piano.
No, just learn that song, and then you can start practicing piano to be better at piano in general. And, I mean, she had the painting down. Right,
but she really should have learned that.
Yeah,
I feel.
Failure on her part to not get piano instruction from the Nazis.
It also makes me question who really is she? Like, what was her real name? Did we ever get that?
We don't get the name.
I kind of want it.
Yeah.
And I kind of giving her the...
Well, the whole not getting her name allows us to not know if she was a German spy or if she just took that famous woman's identity and was just caught out in a lie because she's not actually the famous resistance fighter.
That's true, too. So she could just be a random woman who... Maybe she was on the run from something or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
I didn't even think of it that way. So that's possible.
She just could be reinventing herself as this famous person.
Right. So, okay, since we're talking about the couple here, I feel like we should at least answer that. Would you be able to murder your spouse if you found out they were a double agent for the government, and in this case, I guess, Nazis?
So, for the Nazis and Hitler.
I mean, you can use both. So you can use the Nazis, but then also just a regular double agent for a different government. So not as extreme.
So the Russian government.
I mean, is that not as extreme? I'm not
sure.
The
Nazis? It's marginally less extreme.
I'm not really.
It's like diet Nazis.
Yeah. But anyways, would you be able to? And I mean, is it a hard decision for you?
It would be a hard decision. It's a hard decision because betraying your country is a lot of things.
Right.
And I guess it would depend on what information you were giving to the Nazis.
I mean, he didn't really get that information. He was only getting the information that she was giving information.
Well, he knows what information that he has had access to that he would then know she has access to.
So, I mean, so you're not giving a straight answer. Are you afraid to, or...
I don't want to sleep on the couch. Although I might want to sleep on the couch tonight. But that's a separate
story. Anyways, would you be able to, really?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, in World War II, when everything hangs on the balance, I would like to think that I don't want the Nazis to control the world and kill everybody. But I honestly don't know if I could kill you.
Well, thank you, I think.
Even if it's the Nazis. I don't have an answer.
That's not what you said off podcast, but okay, you're trying to be sweet. I get it. So for my answer, I would say it would really struggle because I am of the mind that people are not just what they do. So even if you are a Nazi or Nazi sympathizer or whatever, there is more to you as a human than that. And I would struggle with well, what if like he did horrible things in the past, but love has changed him, made him better or whatever, and he really is in love with me and he really is the man that I'm in love with right now, but he made a bad choice in the past and he can't get out of it.
Right.
Like, I struggle with that because I do believe humans are layered and there's more.
I'm gonna change my answer. I might old yeller you. They're crying while I do it.
Wow, thank you. Rude. But anyways, I have a hard time believing that people are just these little boxes that we put them in. So I would struggle. I don't know that I could do that.
I think it's really going to depend on what the information is and how damaging it is and how helpful it is to the Nazis.
And how much I believe that my husband is actually devoted to me versus how much I believe that it's all fake. So a lot of that would factor in. But it wouldn't be a simple answer for me, and it wouldn't just be like okay, we're going to do this. So, tough.
All right.
Yeah. I look like the better person. You're welcome.
You always look like the better person. It's getting to be tedious.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that people were talking about on Reddit that I found interesting and I wanted to bring up was the Lizzie Kaplan character. So I enjoy her just as a human. So I was excited to see her. So I'm very biased on this whole situation. So I wanted to talk to you about it.
Our second Lizzie Kaplan movie for the podcast.
What was the other one?
The Interview.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Where they tried to go and assassinate Kim Jong-un. Spy movie, actually.
Long time
Another
ago.
spy movie.
Yeah, but a long time ago. Anyways, so there's a few things about her character. But first of all, people felt her character was completely unnecessary. Now, do you agree with that?
Kinda. I mean, what did she add to this movie other than nothing? Like, there's nothing really that she added other than that one scene where she gets confronted by her sister-in-law and she's like, she was not trained to lie, so something's going on.
I will say she looked more like Marianne Cotillard's sister than Brad Pitt's. Like, they look a lot alike, actually. Like, seeing them next to each other, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so she didn't. Some people said that they thought she was a red herring. They thought that she was actually going to end up being the double agent and not his wife, and that he was going to have to end up offing his sister because his sister was always acting really strange. She made strange comments about being able to do whatever you want in the military and getting away with it. The fact that he kept going to her and telling her things when there was literally no reason to do so. So people thought it was put in there as a red herring. So people would.
I mean, I could 100% see that, and looking back on that, that makes sense. I didn't see that at the time, and I didn't really view her character as all that necessary.
I didn't see it at the time. I was just really happy she was in it. So I mean, anyway, but the other thing that people really have an issue with is the fact that she is an openly gay woman who is in the armed forces, whatever that may be.
In the 40s. Yeah,
in the 40s. So did that bother you? You are
I saw that as a bit odd given the time period because, it is England, so it's a little bit more liberal than the United States, certainly. But at that time, I wouldn't have expected that from any country's military, honestly. I didn't expect that was something that was accepted.
Right. Just
full stop.
Right. So people were complaining and saying that it was pandering to a 2016 audience. I'm assuming that's when this movie came out.
Yes.
And that they were trying to kind of put in more
diversity.
Yeah. So I wanted to know because that's what I do. So I Googled this, and so this is during World War II, right? I'm not in like the wrong war. I just want to make sure,
This is World War II.
I'm a little slow sometimes.
It's.
So I looked it up, and so people are right that was not accepted in the military, and service members basically were persecuted with a Section 8 blue discharge, and it was essentially a mental health thing. They were basically told that they were psychopaths.
Section 8 is going to the mental.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, however, it says, despite the threat of persecution, gay and lesbian service members thrived during World War II. As with most young soldiers, many had never left their homes before, and the war provided them an opportunity to find community, camaraderie, and in some cases, first loves. These new friendships gave gay and lesbian GI refugees from the hostility that surrounded them and allowed for a distinct subculture to develop within the military. Service members on every war front enjoyed drag shows. An entire gay lexicon was developed from the writings of Dorothy Parker, and eventually an underground queer newspaper emerged. The Myrtle Beach Bitch, or Myrtle Beach Belle, covertly shared news and stories between bases and units. It says also many lesbians in the armed forces rose to positions of influence. Phyllis Abry, for instance, was featured in propaganda articles because she represented the ideals of the WAAC. Unknown to the Army, they also selected Abry's lover as the other ideal for the WAAC to be featured together in the propaganda. The irony that the military selected 2 homosexuals to represent the ideal image of the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps was not lost on them. So it looks like while it was frowned upon, it was actually a time in which they thrived and they were doing well and they were coming into their own.
I think this is a big change because the changing of the small town mindset by being thrown in with all people from all different places in the country, whether it's the United States, England, Germany, what have you, it exposes you to new ideas. Right. I mean, less so in Germany because you all have the same ideas, but for this war specifically, I'm not saying that all German people, but the Nazis had a very huge propaganda movement. Right. But for the United States, with the freedom of speech and all the freedom of having your own opinion and ideas, taking you out of your local community exposes you to new things.
Right. No, I don't know if the filmmakers knew about all of this when they were doing this, but I wonder if it is a subtle nod to showing that this was a time when, lesbians were.
Let's give them the credit, even if it's undeserved.
Well, but I think it's a really interesting thing. That's something I didn't know and I wouldn't have known before this film, but it makes me actually kind of have an appreciation for that, and it actually makes me feel like if that is true and they did know, then maybe it is kind of nice that they put it in the film, that they're kind of making a nod to a movement that we all didn't even recognize happened that early.
I think that's fair.
So I don't know. I kind of enjoyed that. I women's rights and all that kind of stuff is just something I enjoy. So found it interesting.
Human rights,
but this one specifically is centered on women. But anyways, moving on. The ending of the film.
Yes.
So I could not find other people's real opinions on the ending of the film. Most people, all I saw was how wonderful it was. Now, we had a different version of that. So do you want to say your thoughts on the ending of the film?
I felt it was a little bit spoon-feeding the drama in at the end with the letter. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seemed unnecessary and just forced. It was.
Are you saying that because I said that, or
no? It seemed kind of like the movie could have ended without that, or gone on to something else and not had that storybook, I'm your mother, I will always love you kind of.
So how would you have liked to have seen it end?
I honestly don't know.
Got no answer for that? I
mean, if you want to go completely bleak, they don't trust him and they take him and shoot him and they put the girl in the orphanage.
Nice. That's great. I mean, wonderful.
If you're dealing with the Nazis and spies, you can't take any chances, right? I don't know.
I guess. I mean, for me, I just felt like the ending was a little bit too, like, okay, we get it. Like, yeah, we understood that her killing herself was supposed to mean that she loved her family and her daughter. We don't need you to then shove it down our throats.
It's spoon-feeding us what we already know.
Yeah. Now, I think it would have been best if they had just left it with him crying over her body and then the guy saying, you will write this up as he killed her with his own hand type thing, kind of showing the camaraderie there. I am curious what the symbolism of her all red outfit was at that time, because I feel like that couldn't have been just a random thing. Like, she was wearing literally all red with a hood, which obviously right away brought me thoughts of that TV show that I have not yet seen, Handmaid's Tale. Like, obviously,
I was thinking the Scarlet Letter.
It could be that too, but it must mean something, right? It has to. She wasn't ever wearing anything like that in the entire movie, and then all of a sudden she's wearing all red, and the hood goes over her head, and she kills herself. Yeah. So it must mean something. I don't know if it was just symbolizing love. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I would love to know. So if anybody knows out there, like, I'm curious about that because it stuck out to me right away. Anyways, but that is all I have for the ending of the movie. I wish it had ended earlier than it did.
I think just cutting it out at the end where he's writing it up, or maybe sending him back to France because he has nothing left to live for, or like he's just crushed and he wants to get revenge on them. Something else happened,
right?
But not the letter, not the happily ever after on a farm kind of. No,
Okay, so do you have a history minute?
Well, first off, we have been putting this one off for a while, and we have no audience asks. So shame on our listeners.
Yeah, I put it out there a long time ago, and I consistently continued to put it out there, and no one. So I'm wondering, have you guys not seen this film, or do you not remember it?
Hate us all?
Yeah, do you hate us now? Like, what's going on? So for the next audience ask, like, please, I'm gonna put it out tomorrow. And please, just send us something.
For the love of God, send us some audience asks. Yeah,
send us, email us, tweet us, whatever it is. Just please. We might be doing it early. Hopefully, preferably we will be, but who knows?
We're not.
Kind of on like a weird schedule right now. So whatever it comes out, it comes out. But yeah, very disappointed about the audience ask. But you do have a good history minute.
Tyler's History Minute.
So I have a few things to talk about.
Guys, buckle in.
So the Blitz is a big part of this movie when they're living in England or London. And the Blitz was quite a long period from 1940 to 1941, 8 months or so, where the Nazis, after having already won the air battle over England by shooting down a lot of English pilots, started bombing cities. And they were bombing the hell out of London especially.
So like what was happening during the birth of Anna.
Correct. Yeah. So it was done under the guise of saying we're taking out military targets to make them not be able to fight anymore. But it really was basically done to demoralize the British people, to say this is awful, we're dying, we have no part in this war because we're civilians and we're trying to live our lives, and you're just bombing the hell out of us, you're killing children, you're killing elderly people, we give up. And kind of backfired because British people are stubborn and they said, go to hell, we're going to continue, we will fight you on the landing beaches, we will never surrender, that whole speech.
Yes, yeah. I remember.
So there's that. So the Germans won the war in the air, but they never actually invaded. And this is largely credited to the Royal Air Force putting up a valiant underdog fight for a long time. And their secret weapon was that they had radar posting, so they could tell when and where the planes were coming from in advance. And they didn't want the Germans to figure that out, so they came up with lies to account for how they could see in the dark. And so this is where we get the carrots improve your vision myth.
Oh. Why did I would never have put that together.
So they came up with a lie that we eat lots of carrots so that we have great vision and great night vision rather than we have radar.
Wow. So I've been believing a lie my whole life.
Basically.
Nice.
And then
add it to the list.
Then lastly, so the British intelligence and the spying by the British was hands down better than the Nazis. They won hard on the spy front of the war. So they had broken the German Enigma code fairly early on, and they were reading all of the German messages. So they knew in advance when someone was trying to sneak into the country, and they routed all of them up.
Now, how didn't the Germans figure out that they were reading all of these? Like, they must have known at some point.
So that was a very closely guarded secret. So the British played a very delicate game of using the information tactically when it was vitally important and letting some things happen so that it didn't look like they were reading everything. So it was a fine line that they had to dance. So some cities were bombed even though they knew in advance and people died. And then for the spies, they rounded up all of them because they're not playing that game.
Right.
And so in post-war records, they show that the only spy that was not captured was one that killed himself. So, yeah.
So, yeah, they won. They won that game.
They won that game.
Yeah, got it. That all you
That's
got?
That's all I got for the history minutes.
Whew. Okay. We're done with that. But do you have reviews?
Reviews.
I heard there was a little bit of technical difficulties during this, so...
You heard, you were part of it. We tried looking up at Rotten Tomatoes.
After you were like, it's not working! I think my computer's broken.
I tried on the computer. I tried on my phone. I had you try on your phone. It was just a whole debacle.
Right. So, but you did figure something out.
So, yes, I went to Wikipedia, and the aggregate scores per Wikipedia for Rotten Tomatoes was 60%.
Whew.
Which I would have given it a higher mark than that. I actually really enjoyed this movie, and I would have probably given it a 7, 9, 8. I'll give it a solid 8.
But why do you think the critics gave it so low? Do you think that there's a reason for that? Like, I mean, we always look at it and say, like, you know, maybe it wasn't cinematic enough, or maybe
some of the CGI was mediocre. Like, you could clearly tell in the opening scene that he was parachuting in the CGI when they could have just had a person parachuting. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why they had to CGI Brad Pitt parachuting when they could just have somebody parachute. But the same with the Blitz. Some of the background effects weren't particularly great. The acting was very much good. I mean, it was better than I would expect, although it's Brad Pitt. So,
right. But it's Brad Pitt, yeah. I mean, I did see some people were saying that it's really just a mix between Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Casablanca. So, like, was it needed? Was it a film that was necessary? So maybe unoriginality was a thing. I thought it was really good. Now, granted, I saw Mr. and Mrs. Smith a very, very long time ago, so I don't remember barely anything about that movie. And I don't know that I've ever seen Casablanca, although I'm not going to rule it out. I may have seen it.
I don't think I've seen it, honestly. But I think when we looked this up, this movie was based on an unconfirmed true story.
Yes, that is true. So I actually was going to mention that earlier, so thank you for bringing it up. Stephen Knight wrote this screenplay, and he based it on a story he was told when he was 21, when he went on a trip with his then girlfriend to Texas. He wasn't able to confirm the accuracy of the story when he started researching on it, but it stuck with him, so he really wanted to write a movie about it. So he kind of said, it might be true, it might not be true, but it's kind of cool that it may or may not be true. Like, it could be, like, the story of, like, some underground spy that, like, nobody knows about. Like, I feel like that would add, like, appeal to it.
Yeah, I think I know. I've also mentioned this on the podcast previously, but another Lord of the Rings connection is that Christopher Lee was in the British intelligence during World War II and was actually legit a badass spy.
I don't know why that needs to be brought up, but
he's just, it's so awesome. Like, on the set of Lord of the Rings, he's like, that's not what it sounds when you stab someone in the back. Terrifying thought.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, so as for my review, I was going to give it a 7. So I like this movie, but it's one of those things where it's like I thought I went into it thinking it was going to be a love story, right? So right. I kept looking for her to prove her love, and while killing herself, I suppose, is proving her love. The rest of the movie, though, I was kind of still looking for it, and I didn't really feel it or see it, and it just kind of left me wanting more. Like, I might
have to let you watch the trailer for this movie and see if you get a different vibe from the trailer.
Yeah, maybe, because I haven't seen the trailer. But yeah, like, a lot of the times I was kind of waiting for her to show love, not lust, but show love towards her husband, and I felt like I was lacking that, so maybe it's just because I went into it looking for a romance. So that could have been my own mistake there.
I think that's possibly fair. I mean,
it is what it is, right?
It's definitely better than a 60. I would say.
Yeah.
It's definitely a 7 or 8. It's worth watching. It's an interesting movie, and we've already spoiled it for people watching, but it's...
Yeah, but I wouldn't rewatch it, I don't think. I don't
think
like
it has
it's a
to rewatch.
That's why it doesn't get higher for me, you know?
Yeah, well, we already know what happens, and it's kind of like, there's no surprise.
Right, and I also know I turned it off 10 minutes early, so it's just... But anyways, so you have a next movie, but we kind of, like, broke all our things that we would normally do for the next movie, right?
So it's your pick next movie.
I mean, technically. Okay, so let's be real here.
It's the Discord that we run picking for us.
Yes, it's their movie. The reason we're doing it is because we were late on doing it for them, and so we decided we should push it into the podcast because then we'll force ourselves to do it. But the reason I say it's kind of not my choice is because we are fully aware I'm not going to like this movie.
Oh, no, you're going to hate this movie.
Like, I don't know anything about it, but I do know that it's an actress that I'm not in love with. Now, we can have our feelings and whatever.
Undeservedly so, but sure. And it's also science fiction, which you're going to hate.
Right. So, not looking forward to it. But the next movie is Contact. We will be doing it as soon as we actually get to it. But hopefully it's not as awful as I am predicting. I'm going in with really low standards, so maybe it'll surprise me. I don't know. But yeah. So anyways, is there anything else you want to add?
I think that's mostly everything. I did like actually one random thing that struck out at me in this movie was the telltale heart moment that he had when he's waiting for the phone call and he's hearing the clock just loudly counting the seconds. I thought that was a nice touch because it's.
Why did I think when you said that you were talking about the scene where she said, please go upstairs and make sure they're not fucking in Anna's bedroom?
No.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
No, it's when he's laying in bed reading the book, pretending to read a book because he's staring at the same lines over and over.
Right.
He's not actually reading. He's not turning the pages. And he hears the clock seconds counting down till.
Yeah, that was a good touch. Nice little detail they did there. Really showing his anticipation.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a great scene in the movie. It's worth mentioning.
Thank you for mentioning.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, I've mentioned before, and I'll mention again that we really do need reviews. So, if you guys like this podcast, or even if you hate it, I mean, whatever, we're open to all reviews. And you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. It helps people find us, helps people know if we're worth listening to. So please do that. Also share with whoever, wherever, on Twitter, wherever you share things. Do that for us because we really, 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 really love interaction, and I would love for more people to talk to us, let us know what they think. Tell us they hate us. I don't, I'm open either way.
All press is good press.
Exactly. So just talk to us is really what I want. So, as I said before, Audience Ask will be going out tomorrow, which tomorrow is Friday, I believe.
Yes.
Depending on when Tyler gets this up. But please go and tell us your questions. You guys have seen Contact. I know you have. I know many of you have seen Contact, so you must have something. So discussion topic, questions, things you hated, things you loved, whatever you have, just come and tell us that. So I'm on Twitter.
Wow, you're struggling right now.
I know. Cinematically C. Tyler is on Twitter. Blame Tyler CC. If you want him, make sure that you tag me because you won't get him otherwise.
No, you won't.
Yeah. I am also on email. It's cinematicallycorrect@gmail.com. You can find us really anywhere, but those are the places you're actually going to get us.
Twitter's your best bet.
Yeah. So that is all I have. So thank you to Jake and Athens Music for our intro and outro music, and we'll be back next week with Contact.
Thank you all for listening.